I'm interested, what 1 week out, what's the mood? Are you nervous? Are you excited?
We're focused on winning the trust and support of voters right across our country. We know that there's still that week left to go, and lots of voters have yet to make up their minds as to how they're going to vote. Our message to voters is don't pay too much attention to the polls. There's a huge difference between them. And if you want change, if you want to turn the corner on 14 years of chaos and division, then the only way to do that is to go out and vote Labour on the 4th of July. And I'll be out making the case for that between now and polling day.
I wanted to touch on the doctors' strikes, obviously taking place as we speak. Wes Streeting has said he would meet junior doctors as soon as the 5th of July. How quickly could Labour reach a settlement with them?
Well, that's a process of negotiation, but in order to get to a settlement, you've got to be around the table having that conversation, and that's something the Conservatives time and again have failed to do where it comes to our NHS. It's why we saw lengthy strikes by nurses. It's why in our schools we saw extended strikes from teachers because of total failure by the Conservatives to take their responsibility seriously, get around the table and sort it out. And what Wes Streeting has said is that if people put their trust in us, if they vote for Labour on the 4th of July, then it will be a day one priority to seek to resolve this dispute as quickly as possible.
Do you think this is the 11th strike by junior doctors? Do you think it is provocative to do so in the final week of the election campaign where clearly Parliament's not sitting, clearly every member of Parliament and prospective member and member of government is otherwise engaged this week of all weeks? If there's been mistakes made in the past year, then that's a different point. Is it provocative to strike this week?
It's disappointing. I wish the strikes weren't going ahead. It represents a long-standing failure to reach an agreement, but the commitment that we give is that we'll be serious about trying to resolve it and getting on with that work from day one. But we can only do that. We can only seek to get the NHS back on its feet, invest in more appointments, NHS dentistry, more scanners to pick up on cancer sooner, if people go out and vote for that change on the 4th of July.
I wanted to touch on the comments that came up in the debate last night that Darren Jones has made recently regarding the overall cost of Labour's net zero plans, that ultimately the cost will be very high, touching the figures of £100 billion or more. The party's also always been clear about costs like that and been clear that a lot of that will be funded by the private sector, and so that won't need more taxes or more borrowing on the part of government. My question to you is, what if that private sector funding does not arrive? Do you lose the policy or do you fund it via taxes or borrowing?
So what we know from conversations with businesses is that there is a real appetite and willingness to invest here in the UK, and it's how government can work together with business to drive that investment, to drive those jobs and the growth that will be so essential in the years to come. So it's not simply about the spending of public money, it's about how you lever in wider private investment. And what businesses want and need is some certainty and some stability, and we certainly haven't had that in recent years under the Conservatives, where we had that disastrous mini budget with Liz Truss. We've had economic turmoil. You know, your viewers will know just how difficult that's been for them personally and their family finances, on their mortgages and much more besides. And it's our number one priority to bring economic stability once more back into our economy. And what Rachel Reeves has set out is a clear set of fiscal rules that will drive that. And everything in our manifesto is fully funded and fully costed because we know it's working people who pay the price when you have the approach of people like Liz Truss. And in contrast, the Conservative manifesto is a wish list full of unfunded commitments. They can't say how they're going to deliver on it. In fact, the Chancellor has already spent some of the money he's now planning to spend for a second time. And if people want to turn the page on all of that chaos and actually get our economy growing once more, then the only way to do that is to vote for change.
I understand that, and change and stability might deliver a plethora of private sector willingness to invest. But if it does not arrive, that private sector funding, which in Darren Jones's word could be up to £100 billion, do you sacrifice the policy or do you sacrifice the fully funded nature of your overall pledges?
Labour's ironclad commitment to voters going into this election is that we will not increase VAT, income tax or national insurance. Everything in our manifesto is fully funded and fully costed and requires no additional tax changes beyond those that we have set out already, for example, around ending the tax breaks that private schools enjoy. That's the difference between our approach and the Conservatives' approach. And it's for voters to decide who they believe has the country's best interest at heart in making sure that we can lead the world and be at the forefront of these new jobs and new technologies. I think there is a lot more that we can do if we work together with business and drive that forward.
And so to be clear, it's balancing the books that is the clear priority over Labour's net zero plans.
Our fiscal rules will be the driving force behind everything that we do in government, because we know you can't play fast and loose with the public finances. It's working families who pay the price when governments don't behave in a responsible way.
I want to touch on the betting scandals that we've seen in the last couple of weeks. And like with Kevin Honore, the government minister earlier, looking forward as opposed to going into the details of it, Keir Starmer has seemed to suggest that the rules and laws around politicians betting on politics are sufficient. Kevin Honore seemed to suggest that he'd be OK if the laws were tightened or indeed politicians were banned from betting in any way on politics, subject to a wider debate. What's your view?
Gambling is rightly subject to tight regulation. That is appropriate. And what Keir Starmer has said is that, where he took action against a Labour candidate, where there are questions that need to be answered by the Gambling Commission, unlike Rishi Sunak, who took a very long time to respond on all of that. And, that is the approach that we take. We expect very high standards where it comes to all of our candidates standing for Labour at this election.
Martin Lewis yesterday said that a senior Labour source had told him that some policies that Labour wants to enact hadn't been mentioned in the manifesto. Were you surprised by that comment? Is that your understanding of the Labour manifesto?
Without having any knowledge of what sounds like a private conversation, I really wouldn't know what Martin Lewis might have in mind when he says that. But what I can say to your viewers is that everything that we've set out in our manifesto, we're clear we can deliver, we're clear how we can pay for it. And if they put their trust in us, we'll get to work on day one, delivering more teachers, more appointments in our NHS, and more police on our streets, which is what voters across the country are telling me they want their government to be focused on.
Bridget Phillipson, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you.
Thank you.